Hello, my friends. My name is Kari. This is Tiger Lily Designs. Welcome to week 2 of the Beanie-A-Long. This is video 1 for week 2. 2-1. It's going to be great. Are you excited? Are you having fun? If you're finding me for the first time, welcome. My channel is about quilting and stitching and making and knitting and basically all the things we're going to do it. This week, this month, I have a 4-week video free series teaching you how to make a beanie. Have you ever wanted to learn how to knit? Is it scary? Do you try to go to YouTube University and then you're overwhelmed with 2,772 videos to try to teach you how to do it? Don't worry. I have set up what I think is easy to follow because I'm a newbie knitter. I've been knitting for only 18 months. I totally self-taught, but I have learned, I've done lots of the mistakes, and I'm going to share with you what not to do as well as what to do. But what I have on here, we are on week 2. Let's recap where we are, shall we? So 2 weeks ago was the materials video. It showed you all the things you needed. You needed your yarn, your needles, your stitch markers, all the things. Now there is a playlist, I will link it down below, where you can just go and start with week 1. That's week 1, that's pre-week 1. Week 1 was last week, and that we had 2 videos. We had the cast on video as well as you're going to make a gauge swatch. We talked about the importance of gauge swatch in last week's video, so we're not going to repeat. But make sure, do you have your gauge swatch? Are you ready? Is it blocked? Step 1, blocked? Yay. So now what we're going to do in week 2 is going to be a 2, possibly 3 video series. What we're going to do now is we're starting the beanie. But first, we got to do some math. So to start the beanie, we're going to cast on right here at the rib, and we're going to do the rib first. But first, we have to do the math, which is why we did a gauge swatch. Gauge swatches are super important. Not going to beat that again, but hopefully you've got your gauge. You should have a number. If you don't know how to do it, refer back to the gauge swatch video and measure your gauge. Now, I told you on my video, my gauge is 5.5. This is stitches per inch. Go back to that video to figure out what I'm talking about. But now what I'm going to do, we have to get 2 more measurements. Okay. This video is math. Don't get scared. I've got a 3-page PDF. You can get this free PDF on my Patreon. You don't have to be a paid member on Patreon. That's just where it was easy for me to put the PDF. So go and grab the PDF, print it out, because we're going to need to take 2 more measurements, that in combination with your gauge swatch, and then we're going to do some math magic, and you're going to know your perfect equation for your beanie. So before I flip you down, and we have like a little school lesson top-down math problem. Doesn't that sound fun? Or maybe not. I'm going to show you the 2 measurements you need to take and how you take said measurements. Okay, so this is on page 1. Page 1 of your Beanie-A-Long. We're going to need to get these 2 measurements. Your head circumference and your ear bottom to ear bottom. What? Okay. Take your handy dandy tape measure. You can use it. I wouldn't suggest taking a Stanley around your head. Those metal ones might hurt, but any kind of cloth measurement. If you only have a Stanley, that's okay. Or one of those metal tape measuring ones. Take a piece of ribbon. That's a little softer around your head. Get the measurement and then put it up to the ruler. Just a tip. Okay, but I have my handy dandy, I don't know, I have a whole slew of these. I just use them for all the things. I always keep one in my purse when I'm out there doing all the things out in the wild. I always need a tape measure. What's this measure? Anyway, we're going to measure 2 measurements, and then we're going to do some math. It's going to be quick, easy, painless. Get excited. Okay, head circumference. This should be pretty self-explanatory, but as I learned last week, when my mama said, I don't know how to make a slip knot, we're going to start, I'm going to assume it's not that easy. So your head circumference. This is it, friends. Okay? So whoever you are making your hat for, whether it's you, your daughter, your husband, your grandma, whomever is the lucky recipient of your hat, take the head circumference. Okay? It's pretty easy. I'll let you know. Mine's 22. Some people tell me I have a big head. I don't know. I like to think it's because it's all the brains in there, not just a big head. That's measurement number 1. Measurement number 2. Measurement number 2 is ear bottom to ear bottom. You may be like, huh, what? Okay. Basically, we're determining the height of your hat. Do you have a, height? So ear bottom to ear bottom. Again, over your head, ear bottom to ear bottom. Move it around. Make sure you got if maybe you're a little pointy at the top. Maybe you're a little, you just don't want to make the hat too short. But this is what you want. So you're measuring to the bottom of your ear or wherever you want. If you want your hat to come down further, measure that. If you don't want it to cover your earlobes because you don't want it, then however long you want your hat to be, that's the moral of this is quite a look, isn't it? Wouldn't that be great if that was my YouTube thumbnail? It won't be. But that is measurement number 2, okay? Mine's 16, just so you know. Okay, so those are the 2 measurements. So in my sheet, my worksheet of fun, I'm going to write those 3 numbers. Now I'm going to flip the camera around. All right, friends, here we are. We've got our 3 worksheets, and what we're going to do is we're going to do our simple math associated with making our custom beanie. Step 1, let's fill in my individual numbers that I just measured to you. So on page 1, my gauge stitch was 5.5. Okay? My head circumference was 22. And my ear bottom to bottom was 16. Easy enough, right? Okay, so we filled it in. What I've got is my vintage grandfather's Radio Shack calculator. This is my handy dandy, it's always in my quilt, in my studio calculator, because this is all we need to do the math, not hard math. So what we're going to do is the next line over here on page 1, HC times GS times 0.9. Okay, don't worry, it's not algebra, it's okay. I had to squeeze it in and make my own little acronyms where I'm going to explain it to you step by step. HC. Any guesses? Head circumference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write this math up here in the corner for you just so you know how to do it. 22, that's our HC. So 22 times GS. So my gauge stitch, GS, is 5.5. 22 times 5.5 times 0.9. This is how I'm going to create a negative ease. We talked about negative ease and how you want your hat to have some stretch. You don't want it to be all baggy on your head. You want it to have some stretch. And so you want to do a little bit of negative ease. So I do a 10% negative ease. So these are my 3 numbers. So 22 times 5.5 times 0.9 equals 108.9. Okay, now what we're calculating is our cast on number of stitches. Remember when we cast on for our swatch, we cast on 25 stitches, and that's how long of a fabric it made. Well, on the beanie we're going to be making now, 25 is not enough, right? 25 is only about this long. We need all of this. But how many do we need? That is the question. That is what we are calculating based on the circumference of the head. So however big your head is, or however small your head is, you need to make sure that your cast on stitches are going to work and are going to give you the negative ease you need to stretch. So that's why we have the 90, because we're looking for a 10% negative ease. That's just my magic sweet spot. Now, what you need to do, so we've got that figured out. Let's come back to the math for a minute. My number was 108.9. Let's read down here to the bottom. It says round to the nearest number divisible by 4. Why does that matter? Why do we need that? Well, because we are doing a 2 by 2 rib. So for example, if your number comes out to 103, that won't work because we need 2 stitches and it needs to be divisible by 4 to complete and have a uniform rib. So that is why it's important. And I gave it examples. These 92, 96, 100, 104, 108, 112. Those are, unless you're doing a child's size hat, which you totally can with this math too, but these are pretty good average adult, small, medium, large adult size head numbers should be somewhere in one of those things. So you can see I'm at 108.9. What I also note is you want to round down. So if it was at, 109 or 107, 107, I'd probably go to 108. But it's one of those things where you want to round to the lower number. The closest one, but rounding down. But you want it to be divisible by 4. So right now I have determined that my cast on, I'm going to do 108. So we're going to come over here to our worksheet number 3. This is what we're going to use. This is going to be like your ride or die. You're going to know it's going to be your magic equation so that when you decide you want to start knitting beanies for everybody under the sun, now you know how to do it, at least for this hat. At least for this head, right? So the yarn weight we talked about was DK. My gauge was 5.5. The needles is a US 6. My cast on, we just calculated it. I'm going to cast on 108. Now there's a little more math here in week 2. So let's go on to the second part of the math for week 2. What we're going to be determining is how long we're going to knit. So, for example, I've got this in progress knit right here so we can see. So, as I told you, this one we're going to be using the ear to ear. So we're going to go over here to page 2. So we've got our ear bottom to ear bottom, mine is 16. Okay, that was my funky little ear measurement. So our total hat height, THH, is our ear to ear divided by 2. So I come over here, our ear to ear is 16 divided by 2 equals 8. Okay? So now we're going to determine, now in week 2, we're only going to be using section A because that's the ribbing, but we're going to go ahead and do the math for B and C while we're here. It'll be fine. So for A, we're going to take our total hat height, which is 8. Remember, it was the ear to ear divided by 2. So that's how tall I want my hat to be. Obviously, it makes sense if ear to ear is my total divided by 2 is the height from the top of my head down to my ear, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So that's 8. So total hat height is 8. So I'm going to do 8 times 25%, so 0.25, times 2.25. So it's 4.5 inches. Now, that is how long your ribbing's going to be. That's how long you're going to knit your ribbing. Your 2 by 2 ribbing is 4.5 inches. And what that is going to create, now you're like 4.5, let me do the math, and then I'm going to debunk your theory. Total hat height times 50%, that's 4. And then total hat height times 25% is 2, okay? If you add all these together, you get to 8.5. But you say, Kari, I wanted my hat to be 8. This is true. But That is because when you fold over, you have to account for that fold over area. Do you know what I mean? So what this is it's going to give you, even though it's 4.5, when I fold it over is 2.25, it's actually only going to be a 2-inch banding because of that quarter overlay. The where your fold is, you lose some fabric in the fold. So it's going to be 2 plus 4 plus 2 equals 8. So my total hat height will be 8 inches. But right now, what we're doing is week 2. Week 2 is the ribbing. And so what we're going to do, so now we've got our math. Right? And if you want to go ahead and fill in over here on your worksheet number 3, your A is going to be 4.5 inches. Your B is going to be 4 inches. Your crown decrease area is going to be 2 inches. We're going to do the rest of this math in week 4. That is the crown decrease math. That is not for today. But what we're doing right now is the rib length, and it needs to be 4.5 inches. So hopefully that makes sense, and you can see that from my cast on to the top, and you can see kind of, you got to look closely where my ribbing ends and my knit fabric starts, my body knitting starts. If you spread it out, you can see the separation a little bit better, but you can see right there that it's right at 4.5. So that is the math associated with making your custom hat. So now, okay, was the math painless? It was painless, right? So are you ready? What we're gonna do next, we're gonna move on to the let's get our ribbing started video, and I'll see you there.